Appearances by the plaintiff, Your Honor.
Yes, please.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Simone Lighty, spelled L-E-I-G-H-T-Y, and along with my co-counsel, Mr. Joshua White, we have the honor of representing the plaintiff in this matter, Ms. Jordan Street, on behalf of her daughter, Rory.
Thank you. For the defense?
Your Honor, good afternoon. My name is Eric Love. I'm joined by my second chair, Ms. Lauren Doig. We represent the defendant in today's case, Reese Taylor.
Perfect. All right. Are there any pretrial matters that we need to take up, either housekeeping, technology, or motions in limine?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Why don't we start with any technology or housekeeping matters from the plaintiff?
Your Honor, as far as technology, well, I suppose it is a technology issue. I would just ask that there does seem to be some motion sensor issues in the courtroom in which I'm presenting, in which case the lights do turn off at points. I would just ask that I be able to pause the time so I can turn the lights back on.
Okay, that's fine. From my perspective, if anyone is participating in the call who is not counsel or a witness giving testimony, I just ask that you mute and stop your video so that you don't pop up randomly on the live stream. Anything from the defense on technology?
I don't have any issues on my end, Your Honor, but because we're in Zoom court, I would just ask that you instruct the members of the bench who are not on video that if any time they can't see an exhibit or myself or can't hear us, that they be able to, pop up and let us know so we can make sure they catch everything.
Yeah, the purpose of keeping your video off is so that if there is an issue that arises, you have audio problems or video problems, you can turn on your video and you'll automatically pop up onto our screen, and that'll let us know that something's wrong. So if at any time you can't see an exhibit or you can't hear, please feel free to bring that to our attention. Okay? Any housekeeping matters from the plaintiff?
No, Your Honor.
For the defense?
Your Honor, there are a few housekeeping matters. I'd just like to draw the court's attention first to the pretrial order exhibit, which concerns exhibits that have been pre-admitted. It's 3D, that's section 3D on the pretrial order. Just to note that 18 and 19 are experts report and his CV are pre-admitted. I was also able to work out with Ms. Lighty prior to today's trial that we would also agree to pre-admit 14 and 15, which is autopsy report and a toxicology report on the decedent, Rory Street. So just to point that out to Your Honor. But that's it for housekeeping. Oh,
my apologies, Mr. Love. That also includes exhibits 16, 17, and 21.
Okay, so my understanding from the parties is that exhibits 14, 15, 16, 17, and 21 at the least have been pre-admitted, and there may be others.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. What else?
I have one substantive motion, Your Honor, but other than that, I have no other housekeeping issues.
Are there any substantive motions from the plaintiff?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, then we can take up your motion, Mr. Love.
Yes, Your Honor. To give a little context, this is a wrongful death case where the plaintiff is alleging wrongful death on behalf of Coach Reese Taylor. What happened was Rory Street died on a soccer field after ingesting cocaine and because of a hidden heart condition that she had. Our first motion is concerning tents and Gatorade that were placed on the field following her death. We're moving to exclude mention of these placements of both the Gatorade bottles and the tents under 407, which bars subsequent remedial measures that would have, at the time, made injury less likely. We believe that there will be arguments say that there was no shade on the playing field at that time of death, and we believe that that argument would be supported by that, and liability would be supported by that if those subsequent remedial measures were placed in the trial today.
Okay, response?
Yes, Your Honor. Under Federal Rules of Evidence 407, it does, however, allow for this type of evidence so long as it's not being used to prove negligence, but rather feasibility as precautionary measures. And it's our position that in this case, Coach Taylor certainly understood that placing tents as a form of providing shade for her players or having water jugs available for her students was something that she that may or may not have been feasible as part of her program. So we're not using it to prove negligence, but rather to show the feasibility.
All right, can I have a final word on that?
Nay.
All right, feasibility is only allowed as an argument if feasibility is denied by the defendant. We're not arguing today that they couldn't have placed those tents there. She's free to inquire on that questioning if they could have put tents. But to say that tents were put after the fact when we haven't denied feasibility is improper under 407.
Okay. I think your point is well taken, Mr. Love, but I'm cognizant of the fact that this is a bench trial, and so I'll overrule that motion at this time.
Yes, Your Honor. And with that, we're ready to proceed to opening statements.
Okay. Anything else before we proceed from the plaintiff?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. With that, you may proceed.
May it please the court, opposing counsel. Rather than 15 minutes and a break, Rory Street got 15 slide tackles until she was broken. As the afternoon leans into the hottest part of the September day, Waco High's varsity soccer team is running drills on a shadeless field with no water in sight. See, they've been at it for a couple hours now. When they started, it was 103 degrees outside, and the mercury is now inching towards 105. The drills are strenuous. Sprint, dribble, shoot the ball, make the goal, now crawl on all fours. Do it for 120 yards and then do it again. The team star, Rory Street, is silently suffering. And it's showing in the way that she plays. She doesn't know what's happening, but her muscles are breaking down. Her brain's starting to swell. Her heart is beating fast and irregularly. And that's swelling too. She's turning pale and lifeless. And the color is fading from her cheeks, and her chest hurts, and she's scared. But her coach, Reese Taylor, the defendant in this case, well, she's not concerned with the worries of a teenage girl. As Rory slows down, her coach yells at her for dogging it. When Rory makes a mistake with the play, she yells at her for lollygagging. Rory is breaking down. Rory is dying. And her coach wants more discipline. Rory's last soccer play, you're going to hear, was a slide tackle. But she didn't deliver it. Her teammates did. 15 teammates did. You're going to hear how one after another
Ms. Lighty, can you hear us?
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
Sorry, your image froze for a second, and I think we lost your audio, but you're back now.
Okay. May I proceed, Your Honor?
May.
Good afternoon. My name is Simone Lighty, and along with my co-counsel, Mr. Joshua White, we have the honor of representing the plaintiff in this case, Ms. Jordan Street, on behalf of her now deceased daughter, Rory. As a star athlete at Waco High, a lot was expected of Rory. People knew who she was, but they loved her for the person that she was both on and off the field. This is how I want you to remember Rory. I want you to take a moment and take a look at her face. I want you to take a look at those rosy cheeks and smile, the youthful spirit and all the potential in the world. Because as you'll learn about the horrific choices that were made on the Waco High soccer field, you're going to hear about a very different Rory. A girl who spent 2 hours of what should have been a practice just like any other day, fighting for her life. See, the defendant in this case is Reese Taylor. And Reese Taylor has been coaching at Waco High School for 6 years, but she has almost 30 years of experience. Her coaching style demands perfection, discipline, and most importantly, obedience. And with Rory, she found a star, someone that she thought was almost superhuman. But with superhuman talent comes impossible expectations. And in her drive to make Rory meet each and every one of her expectations, she stepped over the line. About 3 months before Rory's death, Coach Taylor attended the Texas High School Soccer Coaches Annual Meeting. It's where soccer coaches from all around this great state go to learn about the best practices, new techniques, and most importantly, safety standards. You're going to hear about some of those standards, and you're going to get a chance to see some of those slides that were shown to Coach Taylor. I'm going to ask you to focus on 2 of them. First, playing in the soccer heat, and second, avoiding injury during a play called a slide tackle. And with regard to the slide tackle, the coaches were constantly reminded that this is a play, sure, that happened all the time, but it can be dangerous. So when you're teaching it, not only do you have to teach it right, but only do it when it's absolutely necessary. And with regard to playing in the heat, well, there were 4 clear safety standards that were provided. First, provide water. Second, provide shade. Third, provide a break every 15 minutes. And fourth, limit activity to 2 hours. And the purpose of all of these safety measures is to avoid heat stroke or heat exhaustion. You see, it's a silent killer that can attack even the most healthy people. You see, as the body overheats and it's extended for long periods of time, the muscles and the organs start to fail. The brain and the heart begin to swell. And you're going to hear from our expert today that Rory's body was failing her. And despite knowing all of these safety standards, Coach Taylor arrived back on the Waco High soccer field, ready to coach, but failing Rory. You see, on September 7th, 2018, you're going to hear that this proved to be just another hot day under the Waco sun, but it was one that the coach understood would be hot. And despite having games in the cooler nights, you're going to hear how Coach Taylor insisted on conditioning these players to work in this kind of Waco humidity. You're going to hear that there was no water to be found, that there were no breaks taken or given, and that Coach Taylor, in fact, liked to have practices for 2 to 3 hours a day. Unfortunately, Rory Street is no longer with us, and I can't tell you about the last moments that he spent of his life on that soccer field. But his friend Aubrey Saracen sure can. And she's going to come to you today by way of her webcam, and she's going to explain to you how Coach Taylor seemed to be on top of Rory at every single moment of that practice. What Rory was feeling was heat stroke, heat exhaustion. What you're going to hear is that Coach Taylor just chalked this up to laziness and made Rory go run something called the Burma Road drill. And Aubrey's going to tell you exactly what this drill entails, because it's brutal. 30-yard sprint one way, dribbling the ball 30 more yards. If you're lucky enough to fumble the ball, if you're lucky enough to make a goal, then you get the chance to bear crawl 60 yards back. And Rory did this because she had to obey her coach. And what you're going to hear is that when she did this, Aubrey saw that Rory looked pale, that she was clutching her chest and saying that she felt funny. And as they continued to struggle, Coach Taylor just perceived these struggles as insolence. And what you're going to learn is that insolence had no place on a Coach Taylor team. So what she did, what you're going to hear happened, is that Coach Taylor implemented a brand new drill, one that she'd never done before, one that the team had never done before, in fact, one that no one had ever done before, a slide tackle drill. See, the reason that this drill was so different was because Rory was on one side of the line and 15 other students were on the other. And one by one, you're going to hear how they launched themselves at Rory. How each and every time Rory collapsed and struggled to get up. How at one point, Coach Taylor had to walk up, yank Rory up by the back of her jersey and say, "Do it again." All despite looking pale, all despite looking lifeless. You're going to hear no one stepped in, no one asked her if she needed help, no one asked her if she was feeling hot or exhausted. And what we're going to present to you later in this trial is an autopsy report. And that's going to tell you that, unsurprisingly, Rory died from sudden cardiac arrest. And we're going to bring a report from a cardiologist, Dr. McConaughey. And Dr. McConaughey, well, he's going to tell you that the cause of that cardiac arrest was a heat stroke. Now, we expect that as part of their case in chief, the defense may tell you that on September 7, 2018, Rory had cocaine in her system. And that's something that we acknowledge. But what you're not going to hear, and what we expect you're not going to hear, is the circumstances surrounding that ingestion. We're going to ask you to keep an open mind, and keep an open mind about exactly who is giving you that opinion. Because it won't be a medical doctor, not a cardiologist, just a toxicologist. We're going to ask that you not be concerned with this red herring. And when you focus on the facts, it's going to be clear throughout today's trial that Rory Street died from heat exhaustion. Because instead of receiving 15 minutes and a break, she got 15 tackles until she was broken. And at the end of this trial, I'm going to get a chance to speak to you again. And at that time, I'm going to ask you to find Reese Taylor liable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Lighty. Mr. Love, would you like to give an opening statement at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Your Honor, what happened to Rory Street is nothing short of a tragedy. No parent should ever have to lose a child. But Rory did not die from running or from soccer practice. Rory's death is attributable to two things. One thing that only Rory Street knew, and one thing that no one could have known. You'll hear that it was only Rory Street who knew she had done cocaine prior to practice. And you'll hear not even Rory herself knew that she had a hidden heart problem. A lot of things that happened on September the 7th were the same as any of the practices Rory had ever been at during her 4 years as a soccer player for Waco High School. It was the same soccer field. The one that Rory played on for home games, the one that she played on for every practice she was ever at. Normal. It was the same drill she ran. Now you're right, Miss Lighty was right. It was a new drill, but the skill was not new. Slide tackles are something that are a part of the game of soccer. You're going to hear that Rory was a striker. When she played games, she was the one with the ball. She was the one they were slide tackling. And this isn't the first time in a practice that Rory had ever done a slide tackle drill. And slide tackles, they don't cause sudden cardiac death. The Burma run. You're going to hear that this was a drill that Rory had done before. Actually, generations of high school students at Waco High had done this drill. You're going to hear that Reese Taylor, the coach, she did it when she was a student. Rory's own mother, when she was a student, she did this same drill. And that day, on the Burma Road, there was another girl there running the drill. In fact, you'll hear that girl started the drill before Rory got there. She ran for the 10 minutes she was doing it with Rory. And then after Rory went back to the field, she was still running. And the Burma Road, it never caused sudden cardiac death. The temperature. It was a hot day. 103 degrees is hot, even for Waco. But it's summertime in Waco. Rory grew up in Waco, Texas. It's not the first time she played a soccer game or did a soccer practice on a hot day. The temperature was the same. So then you got to ask yourselves, or you have to ask yourself, Judge, are you listening to the evidence? What was different? And what was different was that one thing that only Rory knew. We have about the toxicology report. Your Honor, you're going to find out that the first time anyone knew Rory had done cocaine was after she died. And this report, it doesn't come from someone we hired. It comes from the medical examiner's office here in McLennan County. Independent body. Credible evidence. You're going to hear that Rory had no signs of using cocaine. Her mother didn't know it. Her best friend didn't know it. No one knew. Not even Coach Taylor. You can put that back down. No, you're actually going to hear that what was in her body, what was found in her body was a small amount of cocaine. We don't dispute that. I'm not going to stand up here and say that Rory Street was a drug addict or a bad person. She wasn't. She was a good kid. But that one time or few times she did it was one time or a few times too much. Because you're going to hear about that second thing. The second thing that no one, not even Rory herself, knew about. She had a condition called myocarditis. Can we pull up the autopsy report? Again, no one knew about this before Rory's death. I expect you'll hear from the mother's deposition that she went to the doctor yearly, and her doctor thought she was healthy. You're going to hear from Coach Taylor and her friend that Rory was a strong athlete. Rory was almost superhuman, as Miss Lighty said. Rory couldn't have known that that small amount of cocaine would prove fatal, but neither could Coach Taylor. You take that back. Your Honor, I want to take a moment to tell you a little bit about Coach Taylor. Coach Taylor has been a coach for 26 years. She's taught softball, baseball, soccer, volleyball. Name sport, she's taught it. And she treats her kids like family. Now, she's a tough coach. No mistake about that. She pushes her students to be the best. That's how she got 5 out of 6 championships in the last 6 years. She treats her students like her own kids. In fact, some of her kids are in this team that Rory Street was on. She loved Rory. Her relationship with Rory was good, and no one will tell you otherwise. That was her star. Coach Taylor never wanted anything bad to happen to Rory. But she could not have known what only Rory knew. She could not have known that Rory had done cocaine. The evidence will show that no one knew that she had that hidden heart condition that day. This is a case about causation. This is a case about what's foreseeable. And no one could have foresaw what happened that day. Rory Street, she was a good kid, but like any kid, she took risks. Teenagers make mistakes, they take risks, and most live to regret them. Unfortunately, that's not what happened to Rory. But it's not Coach Taylor's fault. We're going to ask, after you hear all the evidence, that you find that the greater weight of the evidence supports finding Coach Taylor not liable. Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Love. Plaintiff, are you ready to call your first witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may do so.
And Your Honor, if I may ask, will you be providing us with time checks following the plaintiff's case in chief and then the defense's case in chief before closing arguments?
I can certainly do that if you bear with me while I stumble through the math.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to begin our case in chief by calling Aubrey Saracen.
Okay. Good afternoon, Ms. Saracen. You are advised that you are under oath and the testimony you give today is under penalty of perjury. You may proceed, Ms. Lighty.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Would you please introduce yourself?
My name is Aubrey Saracen.
Ms. Saracen, we're here to talk about Rory Street and how she died on September 7th, 2018. But before we get there, I want to start by giving the judge a chance to get to know you. How old are you?
I'm 19.
Are you in school?
Yes, I study engineering at Rice University.
Where did you go to high school?
I went to Waco High.
Were you involved in any sort of clubs, activities, or sports while at Waco?
Yes, I was on the varsity soccer team.
Well, Ms. Saracen, if you were on the varsity soccer team, you must be familiar with a kid named Rory Street, right?
Of course. She was my best friend, my childhood best friend.
Mr. White, if you could pull up Rory Street's photo. Ms. Saracen, do you recognize who this is?
Yes, this is my friend Rory.
Is this how you remembered Rory on September 7th, 2018?
This isn't how I remember her from that day, but this is how I like to remember her.
Your Honor, at this time we moved, and does it appear to be a fair and accurate photo of Rory Street that you knew?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time we move to admit Exhibit 3 into evidence.
Is there any objection to Exhibit 3?
I'm sorry, Your Honor?
Is there any objection from the defense to Exhibit 3?
Your Honor, I believe we said Exhibit 3 would be previously pre-admitted, but if not, then I have no objection.
Okay, I'm going to take that as no objection, so Exhibit 3 is admitted.
Can you describe your relationship for us with Rory?
Yeah, we grew up together and, would do sleepovers at each other's house growing up and played soccer together, even as little kids before high school. And then as we got older, we remained good friends and we played at Waco High together on the varsity soccer team.
Ms. Saracen, you said that this is the photo that you like to use to remember Rory.
Yes.
You know what happened to her?
Yes. On September 7th, 2018, she actually died at our soccer practice.
I want to jump right into that day. On September 7th, 2018. Can you walk us through how practice started that afternoon?
Yes. So practice started about 3:15, 3:30, right after we got done with school, and everything seemed to be off to a normal start, just running drills and whatnot. I found myself on Burma Road pretty early on into practice.
And what was the weather like at that time?
It was really hot. It was early September in Waco. It was definitely over 100 degrees.
So you said that things seemed pretty typical, pretty normal.
Yes.
Did something change at that particular practice?
Yes. Basically, I noticed I ended up on Burma Road pretty early on into practice because something I did annoyed coach, and also I noticed him starting to seem angry, starting to yell at players, and he was yelling at Rory at about halfway through. And so that was kind of where things deviated from the norm.
And Ms. Saracen, you said it happened about halfway through. Just so that we have a clear timeline of the events, what time would you say that was?
Probably a little after 4.
And you just told us that Coach Taylor was yelling at Rory. Do you
Yes.
recall what exactly she was saying?
Well, the first thing I remember her yelling is her saying how Rory should just take her sorry butt off the field and get to Burma Road because she was useless on the field and might as well run until she passed out.
All right, now you've mentioned Burma Road a couple times, and it's my understanding that it's not actually a place. Is that right?
No, it's more of a drill or a punishment technique.
Could you describe for us exactly what this drill entails?
Yes. So it's an area off to the side of where the soccer team practices. And basically what we do is we sprint as fast as we can for 30 yards. And then after those 30 yards, we dribble the ball another 30. After those 60 yards, we approach a net and we have to score a goal. And then assuming you score on the net, you bear crawl the 60 yards back to where you started. And then this loop just goes on and on and on until coach says we can stop and return to practice with everyone else.
Now on September 7th, 2018, were you doing these Burma Road drills alone?
At first I was doing them alone. And then after coach yelled at Rory that she just needed to run until she passed out, she sent her over to Burma Road with me.
All right, I want to give us a sense of exactly what that soccer field looked like that day. If I showed you a picture of it, do you think you'd be able to recognize it?
Yes.
Ms. Saracen, I'm showing you Exhibit 2. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
What is it?
This is an aerial view of the soccer field and Burma Road at Waco High.
Does it appear to be a fair and accurate view of what the soccer field looked like as you remembered it?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time we move to admit Exhibit 2 into evidence.
Is there any objection to Exhibit 2?
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 2 is admitted.
Ms. Saracen, I noticed that there are 2 colored boxes. Do you think you could be able to tell us which do you think you'd be able to tell us what the red box and the blue box represents?
Yes. The blue box represents the practice field where our team practices. And then the red box represents Burma Road.
What about the actual field itself? If I showed you a couple pictures of those, do you think you'd be able to recognize them?
Yes.
All right, Ms. Saracen, I'm showing you Exhibit 4. Do you recognize this?
Yes, it's the field at Waco High.
Does it appear to be a fair and accurate photo of the field as you remembered it?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time we move to admit Exhibit 4 into evidence.
Any objection to Exhibit 4?
No objection.
It's admitted.
Mr. White, if you could pull up Exhibit 5 for me. Now, Ms. Saracen, this is just a different view. Do you recognize this?
Yes.
What is it?
It's the soccer field at Waco High.
And again, does it appear to be a fair and accurate photo of the field as you remembered it?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time we move to admit Exhibit 5 into evidence.
Exhibit 2, any objection to Exhibit 5?
No objection.
Exhibit 5 is admitted.
All right, Ms. Saracen, looking at this photo, do you remember if there were any tents on the soccer field?
No,
Do you remember if there were any spots on the field for shade?
no, there were none.
Do you remember there ever being any sort of water station or water jugs anywhere?
Maybe a jug, but no, not that I remember.
Thank you, Mr. White. And Ms. Saracen, you were just telling us earlier that Rory has now joined you at Burma Road.
Yes.
Could you tell us what Rory looked like at this time?
Yes. She looked really pale, definitely not her usual color. And she was breathing heavily. As we started running, I remember her like clutching her chest, just because again, she was breathing heavily and just clearly struggling and just looked really off.
I want to be clear, at the time that you guys were conducting these Burma Road drills, did you receive any breaks?
No,
What about after you finished the Burma Road drill? Did you receive any breaks?
no,
As far as you know, did Rory receive any breaks?
no.
You just told us that you were worried because Rory didn't look well. Did you get a chance to help her out?
No, as soon as I kind of noticed the state that she was in, Coach Taylor was already yelling at us, and there was no chance to really convey what I was noticing.
And what exactly was Coach Taylor yelling?
I guess Rory just wasn't running the Burma Road correctly. I'm not exactly sure. And Coach Taylor was suddenly yelling at her about how she was lollygagging on the Burma Road. And he said, I guess you think you're special, so come on over here and I'll show you how not special you are, basically.
So Coach Taylor's mentioning lollygagging. Miss Saracen, as you're standing right next to Rory, did it appear that she was?
No, it appeared like she was struggling. She wasn't being lazy or lollygagging.
Miss Saracen, if you could be honest with me, were the two of you goofing off?
No, we weren't. We didn't want to get in any more trouble with Coach.
So after Coach yells at Rory, what happens next?
So Rory goes over to the normal practice field, and I was still on Burma Road. And when Rory got over to the practice field, Coach had the whole team basically line up and face off against Rory. And he told them that on his whistle, one player at a time would start slide tackling Rory. And a slide tackle is basically in soccer where you slide towards someone's legs to kind of knock the ball out of their possession. And so Coach would blow the whistle and one of my teammates would perform a slide tackle on Rory as part of this drill.
You keep mentioning this play, a slide tackle. Can you tell us, is that a dangerous play?
It's not usually in a game, but it can get really physical and it can get dangerous.
And when you say it can get dangerous, what do you mean? Your Honor, if I may pause for one moment.
Certainly.
Your Honor, I have an objection to this question. I just want to wait for Ms. Lighty to get back. Your Honor, this is an improper opinion. This is a lay witness giving an opinion about whether or not a certain activity is dangerous. That would require some specialized knowledge, some technical knowledge. Under 702, an 18-year-old who was on the soccer field isn't qualified to call something dangerous.
Okay. Ms. Lighty, did you hear the objection and do you have a response?
I think we have a frozen Ms. Lighty.
Yeah, I think we lost Ms. Lighty for a second again.
Seems like when the lights go out, maybe that's what's causing it.
Maybe so. Ms. Lighty, can you hear us? There we go.
My apologies. I was just calling you, Your Honor.
Yeah, I see that, but we got you back. Good. All
I'm
right.
sorry.
Did you hear the objection that Mr. Love made right before we lost you?
No, I'm sorry. I heard I object, and then I didn't hear anything that followed.
Okay, Mr. Love, would you like to repeat your objection for us?
Sure, Your Honor. I'm objecting under Rule 702 that this is an improper opinion by the witness. To say something is dangerous requires some technical knowledge, some specialized knowledge. And an 18-year-old in the soccer field wouldn't be able to do that.
Okay, response from Ms. Lighty?
Yes, Your Honor. As Ms. Saracen has indicated, she's played soccer all her life, and she has played soccer under the direction of Coach Taylor. She's intimately familiar with all the plays on the field, including a slide tackle, and can give a lay witness opinion about whether or not she thinks that this is a dangerous maneuver, generally speaking. She's not providing any sort of expert testimony as to whether or not it's dangerous, but rather just a lay witness opinion based on her experience.
Okay, you get last word, Mr. Love.
Your Honor, the characterization of something being unsafe or dangerous, that's language that implies some type of standard of care or some type of knowledge or expertise beyond a simple lay witness. She can describe what it is. She can say what could possibly happen in her experience if she's been hurt doing these things. But to say it's dangerous or unsafe goes beyond just simple lay opinion language.
Okay, here's what I'm going to do. Given the fact that it's a bench trial and the fact that I don't think testifying that something is dangerous is necessarily opining to a standard of care, I'm going to overrule the objection. But I will say this to Ms. Lighty, I think it'd be more persuasive to the court if the witness could explain why she thinks it's dangerous and actually what the maneuver consists of. So I'll leave it at that. Overruled.
Yes, Your Honor. Now, Ms. Saracen, can you describe for us exactly what this slide tackle maneuver is?
What the slide tackle is basically one player is sliding towards an opposing player who's in possession of the ball, and they're sliding with their feet first to where they can knock the ball away. But oftentimes that also entails knocking someone's legs out from under them. So when I said it was dangerous, I just meant that from a common sense standpoint, if you're knocking someone's legs out from under them, that can get physical and that can be painful.
And can it cause any sort of injuries from your experience?
Sure. I would think like getting bruised, even you could hurt your knee if someone hits the wrong way, ankle. It depends how you land in the fall. It can just cause injuries, yes.
And Ms. Saracen, you painted a picture for us of half the teammates on one side and then Rory on the other. Can you describe for us what Rory looked like as he looked at his teammates, her teammates?
Rory was facing everyone and she was breathing heavily. And so she was kind of like bent over with her hands on her hips and looking pale, looking like she just wasn't herself, no energy, just definitely not herself.
At this point, did Coach Taylor ever approach Rory and ask if she needed help?
No, not that I saw.
At this point, did trainer Jess Merriweather ever approach Rory and ask if she needed help?
No.
So then what happened?
So then Coach blew her whistle and my teammates started to slide tackle Rory and doing it over and over again. And then eventually I think Rory fell and was kind of struggling to get back up, and Coach actually went over and yanked her up by her jersey collar and got her back up, and Coach blew her whistle and the drill kept going.
And when you saw that Coach Taylor walked over and yanked Rory up by the back of her jersey, did she say anything to Rory?
No. Or yeah, she said like, get up and do it again.
You said that Rory collapsed. Do you recall how many times this drill was repeated before that happened?
Before her final collapse or before the one where she was pulled up?
Before the final collapse.
I think it was about 14 or 15 times.
And the 15th time, Ms. Saracen, what did Rory look like?
Basically, she was lying on the ground, convulsing, She stopped breathing, and I mean, it was so chaotic. Everyone ran over and was trying to help her, and we called the ambulance, but obviously it was too late.
Thank you. Pass the witness.
Okay, Mr. Love, do you have a cross-examination for this witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, you may proceed when ready.
Ms. Saracen, you said you were Rory's best friend, but even you didn't know she was doing cocaine. Is that right?
She wasn't doing cocaine.
I'm sorry, Ms. Saracen?
She wasn't doing my cocaine. She wasn't doing cocaine. That's my belief.
Well, you were growing up with Rory, right?
Yes.
You played on the soccer team with her,
Yes.
took classes with her,
Yes.
had sleepovers.
Yes.
You told each other secrets.
Yes.
She never told you that she did cocaine, right?
Correct.
You never saw her do it?
No.
You never did it with her yourself?
Definitely not.
I want to talk about a couple of the things that happened on September 7th at that soccer practice. Starting with the Burma Road run that you just mentioned. We're talking about it. You ran it that day, right?
Yes.
And that wasn't the first day you had run a Burma Road drill, right?
No.
You ran it at least twice before.
Yes.
And on that day, you actually started running it before Rory did, didn't you?
Yes.
So you're running it along, right? You're doing the sprints, right?
Yes.
Doing the bear crawls back.
Yes.
And then while you're doing that back and forth, Rory comes over, right?
Yeah, Coach sent her over.
And then for 10 minutes, you two do it together.
Yes.
And then after she went back to the soccer field, you kept doing it.
Well, I kind of stopped and watched what was going on because it was so unusual.
Okay,
I
but you
was still on the Burma Road.
were still on the Burma Road after Rory had already been off of it.
Yes.
You didn't pass out, right?
Correct.
The temperature that day, you said it was real hot, right?
Yes.
You grew up in Waco.
Yes.
It gets hot in Waco, right?
Yes. Definitely hotter than other places.
Right. And on that day, it was September, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It was a normal hot day in Waco. You'd agree with that.
Yes.
I want to talk about the slide tackle drill you mentioned. You said slide tackle drills can be dangerous. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, you've been a soccer player for some time.
Yes.
You know what a striker is.
Yes.
Rory was a striker.
Yes.
Strikers, their job is to score goals, right?
Correct.
We're trying to get the ball to the striker, right?
Yes.
So a lot of times on the field, the striker will have the ball.
Yes.
And strikers, they get slide tackled during games.
Not 15 times in a row, but sure. Yes.
Okay, so they get slide tackled during games. That's a yes to my question, ma'am?
Yes.
You are not a striker, right?
No, I'm a central midfielder.
And even you got slide tackled during games.
Yeah.
So you'd say they're a normal part of a soccer game.
Yeah, I think I said that earlier.
Okay. You've also practiced slide tackle drills before, right?
Yes.
Now this drill was different. We can agree on that, right?
Exactly.
But there were other slide tackle drills that you and other players on the team had to do.
Yes.
During those slide tackle drills you would do, no one passed out, right?
No.
No one ever got a broken leg.
Correct.
No one died of sudden cardiac death during any of those slide tackle drills, did they, before?
Not in those particular drills.
Now, you would agree with me that your best friend, Rory, was a strong athlete, right? Tough.
Yes.
Best on the team.
Yes.
You had no idea that she had a heart condition, did you?
No.
And you would agree that her death, she collapsed out of nowhere, right?
Her death or the collapse?
Her collapse, when she fell to the ground, that happened out of nowhere.
Yeah, I've never seen a collapse like that. I maybe thought she would pass out, but I've never seen someone convulsing on the ground like that.
You would agree that it was sudden, right?
Yes.
Ms. Saracen, I'm so sorry for your loss, and thank you for your time. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Okay. Is there any redirect for this witness?
You're muted, Ms. Lighty.
Thank you. Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, you may proceed.
Ms. Saracen, Mr. Love asked you a couple questions about the slide tackle drill, but I want to make this very clear. Had you ever seen Coach Taylor line up 15 students against one student to perform slide tackle drills?
No, never.
Had you, in all of your years of experience, ever seen anyone do a drill just like this one?
Never.
As far as you know, had Rory ever performed anywhere near like this type of drill?
Definitely not.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions.
Okay. Ma'am, you may step down and be excused. Okay, plaintiff, you ready to call your next witness?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, by way of deposition, we'd like to call Rory's mother, Jordan Street. And with
Okay.
the court's permission, I'd like my co-counsel, Mr. White, to assist me with providing the responses.
Certainly.
For the court and opposing counsel reference, we'll start on page 2.
Ms. Lighty, Your Honor, before she begins, I just have a question, a point of order. I probably should have clarified this in pretrial, but will you be allowing deposition cross-examinations, or would you prefer I wait until my case in chief?
I prefer you do it right now after she offers whatever portions of the transcript she wants on direct. You'll have the opportunity to offer the portions that you want.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right,
Sliding, proceed.
Mr. White, on page 2, starting on line 6. Good morning. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Jordan Street.
Moving down to line 15. Do you have any children?
I did. My daughter, Rory.
Moving on to page 3, line 15. Did Rory participate in any sports?
Yes, she played varsity soccer for the school. She also played soccer for a private traveling club team on the weekends. To be honest, that kid's life was pretty much soccer 24/7. Getting her to read a book was the hard part.
Moving on to page 7. Lines 8 through 12. Did Rory regularly visit her pediatrician?
At least once a year for a physical.
And during any of those yearly physicals, were there ever any issues?
None. Rory had never had any serious medical issues, just normal kid stuff.
That's all from the plaintiff, Your Honor.
Mr. White, if I could direct your attention to page 6, line 12. Oops, I apologize. I have the wrong citation. It's actually page 6. Oh, Ms. Lighty, I believe you have an objection to this. We're going to hash out.
That's correct.
Okay.
Your Honor, it's page 6, line 12. We discussed this pre-trial. Does she have an objection to this line of questioning?
Yes, Your Honor, and specifically my objection is speculation lacks personal knowledge. The question as read is, did she use drugs? And the response is absolutely not.
Your Honor, if I may respond to that.
You may.
So page 6, line 12, I'm eliciting this testimony to show that even the mother of Rory Street had no idea that cocaine was found in her system, or the cocaine was being used by Rory. We know as a fact that Rory had the cocaine in her system. That comes from the toxicology report from the county. And the fact that she didn't know about it, that Rory kept this a secret even from her mother, as is, the nature of using drugs. I think it's probative for Your Honor to hear that when considering whether Coach Taylor could have known.
Hey, and Ms. Lighty, remind me what the basis of your objection was again?
Well, specifically speculations lacked personal knowledge as well as relevance, Your Honor, if I may be heard.
Sure.
Although Mr. Love is in fact arguing that it was Rory who was doing drugs and taking the cocaine, if I may make an offer of proof, I have a good faith belief that there will be not a single person in this trial who can testify as to how it was ingested, what amount, as to how the cocaine even got in her system. And so this would be irrelevant as to whether or not the mom knew if she was doing drugs. The only probative value to any discussion about cocaine is the fact that there was drugs found.
And if I can have a final word, Your Honor.
Well, you can be heard, certainly.
I think that goes to weight, not admissibility at this point. Our theory of the case is that no one could have foreseen this, not Coach. And if her own mother didn't see it, then that makes it more likely that Coach could not have foreseen this.
Anything further, Ms. Lighty?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Your objection is noted. It's overruled.
Yes, Your Honor.
So, Mr. White, if I could have you read the answers for the record. It's page 6, line 12. Did she use drugs?
Absolutely not. If I had suspected that or seen any evidence of that, then there would have been serious consequences. Whenever Rory acted up in the past, even just threats of grounding and chores around the house proved to be effective deterrents. I have no idea why that test showed that, but it can't be accurate.
And then, Mr. White, if I could direct your attention to page 7, line 19. When you were playing soccer at Waco High, did you ever have to run Burma Road?
Hell yeah, we did. I remember doing that when we were dogging it, or if we weren't in the correct position or something. Coach would send us off to run Burma Road. But I'll tell you this, none of my coaches ever made me or any other kid keep doing it when it was obvious that we were exhausted. Discipline is one thing, but that is just dangerous.
And that concludes my cross-examination of this deposition testimony. Thank you, Mr. White.
Okay. Ms. Lighty, are there any other portions of this deposition you wish to offer into evidence?
No, Your Honor. We rest our case in chief.
Okay. It's my understanding that the plaintiff has rested. Is the defense ready to proceed with their case in chief?
Your Honor, we are, but before that, we actually have a motion for directed verdict at this point.
Okay, why don't we hear that motion?
Your Honor, under the Rule 50, we can bring a motion whether taking the light most favorable, or the evidence in the light most favorable to the plaintiff, there's not enough evidence to establish a breach of duty. At this point, Ms. Lighty opened in her opening statement talking about standards that were violated, talking about all of these things that Coach Taylor didn't do that he was required to do by some association. We did not hear that evidence. There's no evidence of an expert testimony or otherwise that establishes a standard of care by which Your Honor can judge whether or not Coach's actions on the field were reasonable. We don't have a standard of care. We have no way to determine breach of duty, as she promised in her opening.
Okay, Ms. Lighty, response?
Yes, Your Honor. The standard of care in this case would also include the obvious signs that were ignored, as negligence, as we know, is using ordinary care. And in this case, by way of pre-admitted documents, we have a cardiologist report who indicated that Rory Street died from heat exhaustion and heat stroke, not cocaine use, and that there were obvious, clear signs that were exhibited by Rory on that day. And it's our position that we have, in fact, proven that Coach Taylor ignored those and instead implemented disciplinary measures that exhausted her to the point that her heart failed. So we do believe that we have met our burden.
Okay, Mr. Love, you get final word.
Your Honor, I'm not talking about causation at this point. The cardiologist's report goes to causation and what caused her death, and it's disputed by us, but that's a separate issue. I'm talking about whether breach can be established, whether we can establish by standard of care, as Ms. Lighty promised she would show us in her case in chief but wasn't able to. If she can't show that in her case in chief and hasn't put that evidence on, then Your Honor has no standard of care for what a reasonable coach would do in this situation. Without that, we can't judge coach's actions to a metric. There's no ruler here. And at the very least, if Your Honor is not inclined to rule favorably on my motion, as I suspect you won't, I would just ask that those lines from the opening be stricken because she didn't put that evidence on.
Okay, Ms. Lighty, I guess I'll give you a chance to respond to the requested remedy that the lines from your opening statement be stricken.
Your Honor, we're fine with that. We do intend on offering that evidence once the defense proceeds with their case in chief. We're fine with that remedy at this time.
Okay. Given that response, I guess I will strike those statements from the opening. However, your motion for judgment as a matter of law is denied. You may proceed with your case in chief, Mr. Love, but first, it's my understanding the parties would like a time check, correct?
Yes,
I'm sorry, Your Honor?
You would like a time check before you proceed with your case in chief, correct?
I would.
Okay. Let me, give me just a second to total up the math on that. Okay. Are you there, Mr. Love?
I am, Your Honor. I just stepped off screen. Sorry about that.
Perfect. I have that the plaintiff has 22 minutes and 40 seconds remaining, and the defense has 41 minutes and 11 seconds remaining. Okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
You ready to proceed, Mr. Love?
Yes, Your Honor. The first thing I'd like to do is call by deposition, Jesse Merriweather. If I can have Ms. Doyd come up on the screen and read the answers.
Okay, certainly.
Oh, Your Honor, before we begin, we have one of the lines of deposition testimony me and Ms. Lighty talked about prior to trial. I believe there's an objection. If Your Honor would prefer I read it and then you rule, that's fine with me, obviously, but I didn't know if you'd rather handle that now before I get into it.
Well, since it's Ms. Lighty's objection, I think I'll defer to her. Would you like Mr. Love to proffer the deposition testimony and then argue about it, or do you want to take it up right now?
We can take it up right now, Your Honor. That's fine.
Okay.
So, for Your Honor, for your reference, it's page 9, lines 1 through 11.
And I'm sorry, what is the witness name?
It is Jesse Merriweather.
Perfect. And the page and line again?
9, 1 through 11.
Okay, is it question starting, did Rory ever say?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Your Honor, if I may.
1 second, let me read it first, and then I'll
Yes,
hear
Your Honor.
you. Okay, I'll hear your objection now.
Yes, Your Honor. My objection is specifically to several of the statements starting on line 6, specifically where it says Rory didn't say a word and she would have. Rory was a tough kid, but she knew her limits and would have let me or coach know when she needed water. I would object on the grounds of speculation.
Okay, Mr. Love, would you like to respond?
Your Honor, the response I would make is that this is a rationally based perception under 701 based on her interactions with her in the past. I don't have the opportunity to call Ms. Merriweather to the stand right now, but if I did, I'm sure she would clarify that that's what happened in the past. That's just the way it came out in the depositions. I think the meaning is clear that she's saying this is based on her experience interactions with her. And I think it's worth hearing and including in the record that that's how Ms. Street acted in the past when they interacted together. So I think it's a rationally based perception.
Okay, Ms. Lighty, you get to reply on this.
Yes, Your Honor. I believe it's, I disagree with Mr. Love in the sense that it's clear what the meaning is. In fact, from what I'm reading, it sounds like this is precisely speculation. It's Jess Merriweather stepping into the mind of Rory and indicating whether on September 7th, 2018, she would have in fact said something to either herself or to the coach. She's making an assumption there. And so because it's speculation, we ask that that not be read into the record.
Okay. Again, I'm cognizant of the fact that this is a bench trial, and I think your point is well taken, Ms. Lighty, as to it's not exactly 100%.
Your Honor, I'm sorry. I hate to interrupt. I have a fire alarm going off right now.
Sure.
I don't.
Yeah, we want to make sure that you're safe. So why don't those that can stay on the call stay on the call? But we won't proceed without you. You can go check it out.
I mean, I'd love to stay, but
Yeah, go check it out. And why don't you mute yourself before you leave?
Not leave.
I'm not leaving.
Do not leave the building.
We're just gonna wait to see.
Sounds good. We can wait.
I'm sorry. This is worse than your light problem you were having. Again, I thank you all for waiting. That's the best I think we'll be able to get it because I think the fire department is, busily handling the other fires outside and they shut off the fire alarm. But I think you were about to sustain Ms. Lighty's objection before we went off the air.
I think what my ruling was going to be was that I noted her speculation objection, and I thought that it was a good point. But given that this is a bench trial and I can give the appropriate weight to all the evidence, I'm going to overrule it.
Well, great. That's even better. So I will have Ms. Doig come back up on the screen.
Perfect. And this is the deposition transcript of Jess Merriweather, correct?
Yes, it's page 9, lines 1 through 11. Or excuse me, we're starting on page 2, line 13.
Okay.
Starting on line 13, how long have you lived in Waco?
Just a couple of years now. I grew up in Houston, and then I went to Texas A&M for undergrad. And then I got a master's degree in sports training from A&M as well. After that, I worked for a couple of years at another high school in College Station before I got the job at Waco High.
And what is your job at Waco High?
I'm an athletic trainer, and I also teach health.
What is the job of an athletic trainer at a high school?
Sorry, I'm sorry, can you repeat yourself, Mr. Love?
Yeah, the question was, what is the job of an athletic trainer at a high school?
Oh, I'm sorry, what line are you on?
So it's line 21. I apologize, Ms. Doig. I think I told you I was going to stop at 20, so we'll stop there. I'm just getting the paper together. You have the other lines we're reading?
I'm in the deposition right now.
Okay, so line 21 is question, what is the job of an athletic trainer at a high school?
Oh, I'm sorry. We have various teams and activities at the school that involve some level of physical activity and competition. Everything from football to soccer to volleyball to cheerleading and drill team. As a trainer, I work with the students that participate in these activities to keep them healthy and in shape and to treat any injuries that they have.
One moment. The next page we'll be reading from is page 9, line 1.
Okay,
Did Rory ever say, you ready, Ms. Doig?
Yes.
Did Rory ever say anything to you about feeling bad that day?
Nope, never said anything to me. And here's the thing. I'm there to take care of those players and they know it. I'm kind of a combination trainer and guardian to the team. So they trust me and I trust them to tell me if something is wrong or if they're hurting. Rory didn't say a word, and she would have. Rory was a tough kid, but she knew her limits and would let me or coach know when she needed water.
Then go into page 8, line 8. Were you at practice the day Rory died?
I was.
Did you see Rory running Burma Road?
I saw Rory over on Burma Road, but I wasn't watching her closely.
Did you see Rory during the slide tackle drill?
Again, I saw that it was happening, and I certainly saw parts of it, but I didn't watch closely.
What were you doing while all of this was going on?
I was taping another student's ankle about 40 yards away.
At any time, did you see Rory stumbling, faltering, or slowing down in any way that would have indicated he or she was in trouble?
No, not at all.
That concludes the portion of the deposition testimony I'll be reading from that witness. With that, Your Honor, I'll be calling Reese Taylor to the stand.
Before we do that, Ms. Lighty, do you have any cross excerpts to offer from this witness?
Yes, Your Honor. If I may use opposing counsel's co-counsel.
Certainly. If she's okay with that, I am.
Yes.
Of course.
Sorry, I didn't want to mispronounce her name. Page 9, starting at line 12 through 20. Is that all right?
Okay, I'm there.
You said it was hot. What can players do to get out of the heat?
We have tents set up with water and Gatorade now.
When did this start?
Late 2018, either October or November, I don't really remember. Coach and I talked about it then and thought it would be a good idea.
So it started after Rory's death.
Well, yeah, but that isn't why we did it.
That's all, Your Honor.
Okay, anything further for this witness?
Not from us, Your Honor.
Okay, then you may call your next witness.
Call Reese Taylor.
All right, Ms. Taylor, you are advised that you are under oath.
Yes, Your Honor.
Proceed when ready.
Good afternoon, or at this point, good evening. Could you please state your name for the court's record?
My name is Reese Taylor. I also go by Coach Taylor.
Coach, we already heard you were a coach at Waco High School, but can you tell us how long have you been a coach? I've
been a soccer coach, or I've been a coach for 26 years, but I've been at Waco High for 6.
What kind of sports do you teach?
I've done a lot of different sports, from volleyball to soccer, but I mainly teach soccer, or I mainly coach soccer now.
As a soccer coach for Waco High School, did you know a student named Rory Street?
Yes, I did. She was our star player.
And what was your relationship with Mrs. Street?
Well, we had a really healthy coach-player relationship. I saw her, of course, during practice, and we were very lucky to have Rory on our team.
Coach Taylor, I want to talk to you about what we've been talking about all day. And you've been in court today, right?
Yes, I have.
You heard about September 7th, the day Rory died. That's stuff.
Yes, I did.
That day, was it hot out?
It was very hot. It was over 100 degrees, which is pretty typical in Texas.
You said it was pretty typical. Was it normal for you to coach in temperatures over 100 degrees?
Yes. We can even have games in 100-degree plus heat. So we would like to have practices, even if it's over 100 degrees, to have our players safely perform in practice and at games in those kind of temperatures.
How long had you been coaching Rory Street at that point on September 7th?
4 years. She was one of our seniors.
During the 4 years that you coached her, had she practiced in weather like that before?
Yes, like I said, 100-degree heat is very typical in Waco, so it hits that all the time, definitely over those years.
We also heard about Burma Road. Can you tell us in your own words what Burma Road is?
Yes, Burma Road is an exercise that we go through with our players. And this exercise involves the player running 30 yards and then dribbling a ball 30 yards, shooting on the goal. And then if they make the goal, then they'll bear crawl back to the start and they'll repeat that.
And when they're doing this process, why do you make them do it?
Well, it's a really good conditioning exercise. You know, soccer, you're running for 90 minutes. So when you're doing this Burma Road, it simulates a lot of the same strenuous activity that you go through in a typical soccer game. So we do it to help strengthen them, condition them.
But in general, when you have students run the Burma Road, is it because they're goofing off or is it because they're doing something wrong?
No, it's not a punishment. It's just an exercise.
Okay. Did you come up with the idea of Burma Road yourself?
No, I'm not that creative. It just, it's one of the exercises that I went through whenever I was a soccer player at Waco High way back when.
And I hate to ask, Coach, but I think it's important for today's case. How long ago was it that you were a soccer player at the high school yourself?
It was back in the 90s, so it's been over 30 years now.
So for 30 years, have people who go to school and take, practice soccer doing the Burma Road run?
Yes, they've been doing. It's a Waco High tradition, so it's very normal.
Now let's talk about slide tackles.
Okay.
We heard about slide tackles in court today. Can you tell us what a slide tackle is?
Yes, so a slide tackle itself is a type of tackle that a player performs in a game in order to obtain the ball from an opposing team player. If some player has the ball, they will slide tackle in order to get the ball from underneath the player with the ball. And it's a pretty hard tackle. So we like to practice that tackle in practices so that none of the players are injured whenever they have it happen to them or attempt it during a game.
We heard Rory Street was a striker on the team. Do strikers have to know about side tackles like that?
Yes, absolutely.
And why is that? What does a striker do?
A striker frequently is within the box that you kick the goal into. So in order to make sure that that player plays safely in a game, you need to go through these side tackle drills because a lot of opposing players will come and take the ball or attempt to take the ball from a striker while they're attempting to score. So it's a very heated moment in a game whenever someone is in the box, like she was.
So as a striker, would Rory Street have encountered slide tackles during games and practice?
Yeah, all the time.
Had you ever had a slide tackle drill at one of your practices before?
Yes, we had.
Now the drill you ran that day, had you ever done that one before?
I had not that specific drill.
Is it fair to say that even though the drill was different, the skill was the same that you were practicing?
Yes, it was different because of the amount of people, but it was the same because it's the exact same exercise that would happen to her in a game or in our normal practice.
Okay. So when you have practices, even on hot days like this, do you usually have breaks for your students when they're practicing like that?
If they ask for a break, yes. And if they, sometimes we just have breaks randomly, but usually if they ask for one, it's no problem giving them one.
Do you remember off the top of your head how many breaks you gave out that day?
That day, I don't remember how many we did.
But typically, would you give breaks to your players if they asked or otherwise?
Yes, if they asked or otherwise, we would give them a break. We wouldn't throw them back out on the field without a break.
How about water? Was water available to your students when they were playing games?
When they were playing games, water was always on the field. Also during practice, water is always on the field.
Now, did you provide that water or did they have to bring it themselves?
Well, both. So the girls would bring water bottles typically, but we also had water available to them so that anytime that they asked for water, we had it ready.
Are you the only one from Waco High School that's on the field during these practices?
No, of course not. We also have a trainer, Jess Merriweather, who's also on the field to make sure that the girls are performing safely, as well as if there's any injuries that arise, they'll go to Jess before they come to me.
Coach, on September 7th, did Rory ever ask you to have a break?
She did not.
Did she ever ask you if she could get some water?
She did not.
Did she ever tell you she was feeling fine?
She did not.
Did she ever tell you she was having chest pains?
She did not.
How about the trainer? Did you ever see Rory go up and talk to the trainer?
No, I never saw Rory do that.
Did any of the students, Miss Saracen, for example, did she tell you Rory was having problems?
No, I never saw Saracen come up to any of us saying that she had a problem.
Did you think Rory Street needed medical attention?
No, otherwise I wouldn't have continued practice. I would have provided her medical attention. Safety is our #1 concern.
And when you knew Rory Street before she died, how did she feel in terms of her fitness and her physical abilities when you knew her?
She was one of those players that persevered. She was always in top physical condition and she would play all the time. She was one of our star players, so we loved having her on the field. I never expected this.
Did you have any idea that she had a heart condition that wasn't unknown to anyone?
No, I did not.
Did you have any idea that Rory Street did cocaine sometime prior to your practice?
No, I did not.
And if you had known that Rory needed medical attention, what would you have done?
Provided medical attention immediately and would have had the personal trainer there with me to ensure that our player was safe.
Coach, thank you very much for your testimony. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Ms. Lighty, do you have a cross-examination for this witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed when ready.
Good afternoon, Ms. Taylor.
Good evening at this point, Ms. Lighty.
Sure, yes, Your Honor. Yes. Now, I want to start with your record. Coach Taylor, you've been doing this for about 30 years, haven't you?
If you round up, about 30 years, but yes, it's been 26.
And you're pretty proud of the record that you've been able to maintain, aren't you?
Yes, very proud.
In fact, at Waco High School, in the last 6 years alone, you've won 5 district championships, haven't you?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that your results speak for itself?
I don't really know what you mean. Could you rephrase the question?
Sure, Coach Taylor, what I mean is you'd like to think that you're a good coach, right?
Yes, I do like to think that I'm a good coach.
Right. You like to think that you're coaching your students not only how to be better soccer players, but to be safe, right?
Yes, safety is our #1 concern.
So let's talk about safety on the field. On any given day, there are only 2 adults on the field, correct?
There could be more, but usually there's 2, correct?
Right. Jess Merriweather is one of them. That's the trainer.
Mm-hmm.
And then yourself.
Yes.
And as the coach, you'd agree with me that you're basically in charge of everything that goes on that field.
Yes.
Now, you were telling opposing counsel on direct examination that you allow your students, your players, to take breaks, right?
If they ask for one, yes.
Exactly. So what you're telling us is that a player needs to come to you and actually ask you to take a break, correct?
Yes.
But you'd agree with me, Coach Taylor, that if you saw a student struggling and you thought that they couldn't continue, well, it's easy enough to go tell them to go take a break too, right?
I guess I could have.
So in this case, when you saw Rory struggling, you could have told Rory to go take a break, right?
I could have, that's within my power, yes.
Right. But you didn't, correct?
I did not.
And you'd agree with me that as a coach, student safety is your #1 priority, right?
Yes, it is.
In fact, you want to make sure that you are such a good coach that you attend annual lectures and conferences, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Because again, best practices mean better safety on the field, right?
Absolutely.
Now, you're a member of an association, aren't you? It's called the Texas High School Soccer Coaches Association.
Yes, I am a member of that.
And you have, in fact, been to lectures and conferences held by this association?
Yes, I have.
And so you understand that what they're telling you are the best practices in the industry.
I know.
Objection on the characterization that what they said is the best practices in the industry. This is coming from a PowerPoint presentation. For this witness to be able to testify to what best practice is in the industry, it would require some specialized knowledge. She can't just say, without some kind of specialized knowledge of industry standards, things like that, what best practices in the industry are.
Response, Ms. Lighty?
Your Honor, I'm fine with rephrasing the question.
Okay, then I'll sustain it.
Coach Taylor, when you go to these conferences, you're hoping that they're going to teach you how to be a better coach, right?
Yes.
And so you walk away from those lectures believing that what they're telling you is true, right?
Yes.
But what they're telling you is something that you should be implementing in your own program, right?
Would you mind re-asking the question?
Absolutely. You walk away from those conferences believing that what they tell you should be implemented in your own program, right?
Yes.
And you do just that, don't you?
Sometimes they're recommendations, so it depends on the circumstance.
So it's your opinion, or it's your testimony that the Texas High School Soccer Coaches Association is merely providing you with recommendations?
Yes, they're not law.
Coach Taylor never said that they were law, but in your own words, you characterize them as recommendations, right?
Yes, I do.
All right. So I want to walk with you through some of these, as you put it, recommendations. And if I showed you a couple slides that you were shown a little while back at one of these conferences, would you be able to recognize them?
Yes, I do.
All right. Excuse me, Coach Taylor, do you recognize?
I'm going to object at this point. Your Honor, these slides have not, firstly, they haven't been admitted into evidence yet. But second, these slides under 702 contain improper opinions, improper expert opinions. We have no idea who wrote this PowerPoint presentation. It could have been anyone. Could have been an intern, could have been one of the secretaries at the association. There's no person or declarant who we can identify unless Ms. Lighty can lay that foundation that would be able to evaluate, allow you to use your gatekeeping function to evaluate their ability to say these technical things that are industry standard, as she put it, or excuse me, best practices, as Ms. Lighty put it.
Ms. Lighty, would you like to respond to that objection?
Yes, Your Honor, we're laying the foundation right now that, as Coach Taylor just testified, she frequently goes to these conferences held by the Texas High School Soccer Coaches Association. And it's, as in her own words, what she relies on, and she implements these, as she put it, recommendations into her own program. None of this is expert testimony, and it certainly wouldn't require an expert to testify as to, again, how she phrased it, recommendations in a field where she's a coach. In addition, we're using this for the effect that it has on her, specifically hearing these, again, recommendations in her words, and then whether or not she followed them on the soccer field on September 7, 2018. So we don't believe.
You doing, Ms. Lighty?
Your Honor, I was just going to add that we don't believe that this even falls within the realm of 702.
Okay, Mr. Love, would you like to reply to that?
So, if I may proffer, Your Honor, there's statements in here about how to do slide tackles, how to practice in the heat. Someone wrote that Someone wrote that down and said, this is what you should do. That is an opinion. And it's an opinion that you can only have if you possess, or I guess anyone can have an opinion, but it's only valid and admissible in court under 702 if that opinion is one made by a person who has specialized knowledge or training or expertise. And unless we can lay foundation as to who wrote this and whose recommendations these are, they can't be admitted because they're opinions that do not have a person with specialized knowledge making them.
Okay.
Your Honor, can we respond?
Briefly.
Yes, Your Honor. Although opposing counsel seems to believe that under 702 we have to know exactly who wrote them, the fact of the matter is that this is provided to all coaches in the state of Texas by the Texas High School Soccer Coaches Association. And so it doesn't matter who specifically in that organization wrote it, because what matters is the effect that it had on Coach Taylor, specifically that she went to these conferences and took these recommendations and then implemented them in her program. So she's setting, in a certain sense, her own standard of what she believes should be implemented and not implemented. So we're merely asking her which ones she believed were necessary and which ones she followed on September 7th, 2018.
Okay. I think it would help Ms. Lighty as the predicate for this exhibit if you asked her opinion on the THSSCA and whether that's, in her opinion, an authoritative organization on these issues. That would help me decide what to do with this exhibit.
Yes, Your Honor. Coach Taylor, as we just established earlier, you regularly attend conferences by the Texas High School Soccer Coaches Association, right?
Yes, I do.
And, well, you're not going to attend a conference if you don't believe what they're telling you, right?
I would not attend a conference if I don't believe what they're telling me, correct?
Right, and so you would think that the Texas High School Soccer Coaches Association, well, that's an authoritative figure and how to be implementing soccer programs at your high school.
Yes, they can give me recommendations. Yes.
Right. And so as a coach attending these lectures, you get to make the decision as to whether or not to implement them or not.
Yes, I can make that decision.
And you see right here on the screen in front of you, that's Exhibit 11. This is the Texas High School Soccer Coaches Association guidelines or recommendations, as you said.
This is, it looks like a PowerPoint of that was at the, it looks like a PowerPoint to me. I don't know if it's the guidelines. It doesn't look like a book.
Right, but you went to one of these conferences 3 months before Rory died, correct?
Yes.
And you were shown these slides at the lecture?
Yes.
Okay, so you are familiar with them then?
I guess I've seen them before.
Right, and when you saw them before, it was at one of these lectures where they were telling you what to implement into your program or not, right?
Yes.
All right, so let's walk through the first of one of these guidelines.
Your Honor, this still isn't in evidence. I'm going to object.
So I will note your objection that it's not into evidence, and for the record, I don't think it should be admitted into evidence, but I do think it's an authoritative text, which can be read into evidence, but not admitted as an exhibit. So I'm going to consider it an authoritative text on the subjects that are contained within these slides, and she's allowed to question the witness as to whether or not she agrees with the principles and the statements within the slides and question her on those basis. I'm not going to admit it into evidence. Okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed, Ms. Lighty.
Thank you. Mr. White, if you could put it up on the second page where it says practicing in the heat. But Shirley, you've seen this slide before, right?
Yes.
When you went to this lecture, they told you if the temperature rises above 100 degrees, there are certain recommendations we have for you, right?
Yes.
If you look at the bottom portion of that screen, it tells you exactly what they think are safe measures to implement.
Yes.
Your Honor, if I may have one moment.
We're having a bad day, Miss Lighty. I can't hear and she can't see. We'd be a great pair.
Okay, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Coach Taylor, again, just to redirect, you were at the bottom half of the practicing in the heat section.
Yes.
Now, on September 7th, 2018, it was incredibly hot in Waco, correct?
It was as hot as it normally is in Waco, so over 100 degrees, yes.
Exactly. So on September 7th, 2018, well, that puts us in the bottom half of the slide, doesn't it? Because the temperature was above 100 degrees.
Yes.
And in order to safely play soccer when it's above 100 degrees, one of the things that they recommend is providing shade, right?
Yes.
One of the things they recommend is providing players water, right?
Yeah.
Another thing that they recommend is providing 5-minute breaks every 15 minutes, correct?
Yes.
And finally, there's a 2-hour limit to each and every one of those practices, right?
It says that, yes.
Yeah. So let's go to September 7th, 2018. Let's talk about how you ran practice that day. You'd agree with me that there isn't any shade out on that soccer field, right?
There's not.
But you did put in tents after Rory died, right?
Yes.
You do allow your students to go get water, don't you?
Yes, when they ask.
Right, but again, they have to come and they have to ask you to go stay hydrated, correct?
Yes.
And if you thought that a student looked dehydrated, you could have gone and told them to go get some water, right?
I could have.
Now, on the day of September 7th, 2018, well, that was just under a 2-hour practice, wasn't it?
Yes.
And that day, if you had breaks every 15 minutes, that means, if I'm doing the math correctly, that would be a total of 8 different breaks, right?
Yes.
And on that day, Coach Taylor, you didn't give Rory a break, right?
I did not.
Not when she was out on the soccer field.
No.
Not when she was out running Burma Road.
No.
Not after she ran Burma Road.
No.
And not during the slide tackle drills, correct?
No, I did not.
So let's talk about those slide tackle drills. As you said on direct examination, this is a drill that you've never done before, correct?
Not in this way.
Right. And by this way, you mean lining up 15 of your students against one, correct?
Yes.
And you told us on direct examination that, well, you pretty much always conduct slide tackle drills in a safe way, don't you?
I think I said that I conduct slide tackle drills in a different way, but I don't know if I would say that I conduct them in a safe way before and not a safe way now. I'm sorry. Maybe I don't understand your question.
Well, let me rephrase. Coach Taylor, you understand that there's also a recommendation regarding how to teach slide tackles, right?
Yes.
And what this recommendation reminds you is that slide tackle training can be dangerous, right?
Yes, I agree with it. It is dangerous.
And what it tells you on the bottom half of that page is that you should only teach this when necessary, correct?
Yes.
And so just so I'm clear, when you thought that Rory was goofing around and you made this new slide tackle drill, you thought that that was necessary, right?
Yes.
But because you had never done this before, you hadn't assessed the risks associated with this kind of a new drill, correct?
Not before. Correct.
Coach Taylor, in your opinion, you don't think you did anything wrong, right?
I don't think that I did anything wrong.
Yeah.
Yes, I would conduct my practice the same way. Yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay, Mr. Love, do you have any redirect for this witness?
Briefly, Your Honor. You were asked about those slides you saw at the Texas Soccer Association, that high school thing. Where did you see those at? What was going on there?
It was at an annual conference that we have. So there are coaches from all around, whether that's a high school coach, college coaches. Sometimes we even have professional coaches that are coming in to discuss these topics.
Do you have any idea who wrote the slides that you saw on the screen that day?
No, I'm not a part of the committee, so I don't really know who wrote those.
I want to talk a little bit more about the drills, or excuse me, the break sheet. Or the question she asked about breaks on your cross-examination.
Okay.
If Rory had come up to you and asked you for a break, what would you have done?
Given her a break.
And how old was Rory at the time she was on your soccer field on September 7th?
18.
How many 18-year-olds do you have or do you know how many 18-year-olds you have on your team?
There's quite a few. I mean, our team is I coach the varsity team, so they're mainly older students.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay. You may step down, Coach. Mr. Love, you can call your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. I have no further witnesses, but I have a few things I want to do from the the expert report of our expert, Mr. London. I want to pull that up on the screen if Ms. Doyle can.
Okay.
I'm just going to read it for the record, Your Honor. Here's the opinion that I've reached in this case based on a reasonable degree of professional and/or medical certainty. Rory Street's death was caused at least in part by the use of cocaine. I think there's more from this report as well. Additionally, hold on, Your Honor, I have to just adjust my screen real quick. Additionally, the autopsy report in this case indicates that Rory Street's heart showed signs of myocarditis, which is an inflammation or swelling of the heart muscle. Myocarditis can affect the heart muscle and the heart's electrical system, reducing the heart's ability to pump and causing rapid or abnormal heart rhythms, also known as arrhythmias. Myocarditis is one of the physical symptoms associated with cocaine use, which means this finding is also consistent with cocaine use.
Okay.
Your Honor, there's one final issue we have. I'd like to admit something that has been discussed in the pretrial order. It's a learned treatise. It's been ruled by the court pretrial that this document, I believe it's Exhibit 21, or excuse me, Exhibit 20. It's a document that discusses how cocaine use and heat can interact together. Unfortunately, their expert, Dr. McConaughey, wasn't on the stand today, so I couldn't use it for cross-examination. But it's already been ruled not hearsay and admissible under the learned treatise exception in the pretrial order. The pretrial order, it's at 3C. Based on it not being hearsay and the probative value on having this document educate the court about, the effects of cocaine use and using that in a heated environment, I'd like to admit it. I understand. I would prefer to lay some foundation, but given the unique constrictions of this jurisdiction, I'm unable to do so with their expert.
Okay, Ms. Lighty, do you have a response?
Yes, Your Honor. We object to the use of this document. Although opposing counsel is correct that it does qualify under 803.18 as a learned treatise, it does specify the use of this document. And as Mr. Love indicated, a learned treatise can only be utilized against an expert witness on cross-examination. The purpose is to attack an expert witness's opinion using these types of materials. And so to simply read it without that context, without that cross-examination as is required, would be improper under the rule.
Do you have a reply, Mr. Love?
All I would say, Your Honor, is I would love to have had the opportunity to cross-examine their expert on the stand with that document. Unfortunately, I was unable to. I still find it would be valuable for the court considering it for its purposes and educating the court on the effects of how heat and cocaine interact. I leave it to Your Honor. I understand it qualifies. I understand the limitations of the rules, but noting the limitations of this jurisdiction as well, I'm not able to use it in the way that the rules intend.
I think what we have here, folks, is a goose gander situation. And given that I ruled that the PowerPoint presentation was a learned treatise, and so it could be read into the record but not admitted, I'm inclined to treat this the same way. So you're welcome to read relevant portions in that you wish the record to reflect, but I will not admit it as an exhibit.
Your Honor, okay, so I have it prepared to be read in the closing argument. Would you permit that, or would I have to do it before I close my case?
I'll permit that.
And with that, Your Honor, we rest with that understanding.
Okay. Given, Ms. Lighty, the fact that opposing counsel just walked us through a couple of exhibits, are there any exhibits that you would like to draw the court's attention to in rebuttal?
Not at this time, Your Honor, but I will be utilizing them during closing arguments.
Okay, fair enough. Am I taken to believe at this point that both sides finally rest and close and are ready for closing arguments?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Let's do a quick time check. So give me a second while I tally up those times.
I'm going to mute my mic just so.
Sounds good. Okay. I have time remaining for the plaintiff, 10 minutes, 43 seconds. I have time remaining for the defendant, 25 minutes, 17 seconds. Please do not use all that time. Fair enough. You're on mute, but I think I got the general picture of that. Do we need to take a minute to gather our thoughts before we proceed, or are we ready to proceed to closing?
May we just have 1 or 2 minutes, Your Honor?
Yeah, I'd like no one to leave the call, but if you need just a minute to gather your thoughts, that's fine.
Yes, Your Honor.
Lighty, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Would you like a 2-minute warning when you get down to that time?
Yes, Your Honor, please.
Okay. And heaven forbid, Mr. Love, you use all that time that I need to give you a 2-minute warning, but I will if you do. Okay? All right. Ms. Lighty, you may proceed when ready.
May it please the court, opposing counsel. Rather than 15 minutes and a break, Rory Street got 15 slide tackles until she was broken. Safety standards, especially when working with children in high school, must be followed to the letter. And when they're not, we get the outcome that brings us here today. An overzealous coach who failed to recognize when recommendations should be implemented because she thought she knew better. Today, we've brought a wrongful death suit against Reese Taylor. And what that means is that we have the burden of proof, and it's a proof that we gladly accept. Because in today's case, all we had to prove was that it was more likely than not that Reese Taylor's conduct on September 7th, 2018 was the cause of Rory's death. So let's walk through both of the elements, negligence and proximate cause. Let's start with negligence. Negligence means the failure to act with ordinary care. And for someone in Coach Taylor's position, what that meant was that when she knew what she should be implementing into her programs, but didn't listen to the recommendations. And we showed you those slides. Those slides tell us that when the heat rises above 100 degrees, as it did on September 7, 2018, as the temperatures rose from 103 all the way up to 105, there are 4 things required. Hydrate. You have to make sure that all of your players have access to water. And although Coach Taylor told you that, well, sometimes they bring water bottles, and if they want a water break, they can ask. The fact still remains that there was a barrier between them and hydration. And they could only get that if she said yes. The second thing was shade. And what we heard was that there was no shade whatsoever on that field. In fact, we showed you pictures of exactly what that field looked like. No tents, no trees, nothing. So someone like Rory, who is suffering from heat exhaustion and heat stroke, has nowhere to go. But make no mistake, they added the 10s after she died. The third thing was breaks every 15 minutes. And you heard that, well, this was a just under 2-hour practice. And so by that count, there should have been 8 different breaks. But as Coach Taylor told you, as Aubrey Saracen told you, there were no breaks that day. Not on the practice field, not while running Burma Road, and certainly not during that brand new slide tackle drill. We know that Coach Taylor was negligent because she told you that the Texas High School Soccer Coaches Association, those are recommendations that not only did she want to follow, she thought they were authoritative. She wanted to implement them into her programs, and yet broke 3 out of the 4 of them. Now, we heard a lot about this slide tackling drill. Again, there was a recommendation for that as well. Because what they told you is that, yes, slide tackling is in fact common in practice, scrimmage, and games, but it's dangerous. Coach Taylor agreed with me. It's dangerous and should only be done when absolutely necessary. I want to be clear with you about what she said. She said that when you have a student like Rory who's suffering from heat exhaustion and heat stroke, when you can see the physical signs, she said it was necessary to line up 15 students against 1. You see, this was a drill that she had never done before. In fact, no one had done this drill before. When you haven't done a drill like this on a play that dangerous, you're creating a situation of risk, of injury, and of potential death. I want to pause right here because we're going to talk about just how deadly that slide tackling is in a little bit. But I want to move on to proximate cause. See, the issue in this case is whether Rory died because of Coach Taylor's negligence or whether she died because of a small amount of cocaine in her system.